asking you, what was it like to being a kid in the village?
Being a kid in the village, I moved in from down Overley Lane in 1949 down to the area houses in Oakfield and Anson Road with Pam Greenleaf. We moved down in a tractor and trailer with our little bit of stuff we got in the area houses. That's we had a good happy life in the village. We had nothing hardly, we had no toys or nothing, but we played with all the friends like Anne Greenleaf and all them. They're all my mates because we all grew up together down Anson Road. That was our life down there.
What about you, Ian? What sort of things did you get up to as a kid?
Well, then it was very quiet. Nobody went out to the village. We went to the village school. We played in the street, out in with class, football along lane then. We played in the street with Roger on, one or two more. We played in the pony field, football, cricket.
That's right.
We played in their dens because there was nothing there then, just a field. And there was a sand hole we used to build dens in that was built. The 4 houses that Bannister's built on the left. And there was Ken Morris, Alf Arthur, Tommy Arthur, and Bonko Geary. We all played together, and we played any football, everybody got one. If you didn't like it, you took your ball home, and that was it. And then but you noticed things didn't happen. You went to school, you didn't go out of the village unless you went to Burton with your mum. I went to Burton with mother and my dad, and had to see my aunties. And my aunties used to come over sometime if they got a car, and we went on the bus on the 112, Midland Red, and the fare was a shilling for mum and mother and myself, 1.5 to Burton. And then I went on to village school, and I went to village school right through my school life.
So which school was that? Was that the one?
All Saints.
Milland Lane?
Yeah, the only one school we've got, basically. Yeah. Mr McKnight was my headmaster. We saw the pictures yesterday. Mr Stubbs. And Colin did the same. We were taught gardening. We got a garden, school garden, and we had to do school garden. Yeah.
So what was life like at school then?
Well, I enjoyed school.
You were all boys and girls.
They were strict.
Didn't you? You went up irrespective. You were good or bad, didn't you? Year 1, year 2, and well, I can remember Miss Lakin, Mrs Constable, Miss Ward,
Mrs
McKnight, Mr Jones.
Mr Jones, yeah. Mr Jones.
Right. Norman
right.
Stubbs.
Then Norman at the end. Norman's
after
the
war,
top.
Norman came back. And Mr Mead was another one I remember.
I can't remember that one.
And Mr Hare was the woodwork teacher in the prefabs. And the girls were in the domestic science, which is the other side. And the girls from Barton came to ours for domestic science. And the boys came from woodwork with Mr Hare.
So you said, Colin, it was strict. What was life like in the classroom as a kid?
Well, we had ink wells like dipping ink and things like that. I remember all that, don't you?
Yeah.
You used to break the lids off and throw them like spears.
That's right. And then you lifted the lid and dropped it. You got into awful trouble.
Yeah. We walked down the canal side to play in the playing field. That was our playing field. And the churchyard is now where they're burying people.
Yeah, that was our sports field.
Yeah.
Played football and cricket down there.
Football was where the vicarage now. We played football and cricket was the other end.
That's right. And there was just one big round patch of no grass.
Yeah, that's right.
With stones. If you fell down, you cut your knee on the stone.
There's no pictures on it.
No pictures there. The bowls club was there. Still was there then, obviously. In the old days, you walked through the churchyard. You never saw kids all biking through the churchyard.
You got a slap.
And you very rarely saw people with a dog walking. No. And there was an allotment at the bottom end of the playing field. As you went into the church gate on the right, there was an allotment, and the people that had it were the people that lived in, one of the walkers, that lived where Mr Wealthy or Nick Collins lives now.
Yeah.
And he had that garden, and that edge is gone, hasn't it?
It's all
basically
gone, yeah.
This side of the monument, up to the gate, there was a patch, it was an allotment, plus there were 2 allotments down the other end by the canal. Which the Bader brothers
had, yeah.
Out of Main Street.
Yeah.
What was the church yard like then? Because there were a lot of graves before they were moved. But can you remember?
Oh yes, it was. There was a lot of graves. It was in and out, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was
I mean, you think there's a lot now, but there was a lot. And of course, the new churchyard wasn't even commiserated, whatever you call it.
Consecrated.
Consecrated. I'm trying to think of. That was, was the schools basically, and that was it. Because the church was the school was a church school,
We went down to a lesson in the church every week.
Yes.
From school, yeah. You walked from school to the church every week for a lesson.
And right. And Mr. McKnight, the headmaster, was choir master.
Mm.
In them days, you'll see that he was there. Mrs. Ball was the organist. And there was quite a few of us. We used to have, when I was in the choir, how would you put us on, Craig? We used to rip the bottom of your surplice and put a piece of paper and have a race around to the other side while the vicar was doing his sermon. If you were talking together, old George Thomas, who was in the choir in them days, slapped your head for crying. And the choir in them days was Hubert Hill, Mr. Thomas, Mr. McKnight, Mr. Elton, Hubert Hill. I think Norm Stubbs wasn't in it, and 2 or 3 more, and that was the men. And the choir, they were all local lads basically. Mm. And as I say, the Weavers, I think Harold Weaver was in the choir for a while as well.
So just going back to school, did you do any activities outside of school? Did you go on school trips or days off and things?
Yeah, we had the swimming, went swimming at Burton.
Hanford's that was the old bit swimming bath, weren't it?
The old swimming bath at Burton. Hanford used to take us.
Yeah, the Hanford, the old black and white coach, and Bone Shaker, yeah.
And all the way.
Yeah.
And I think one of the drivers that used to take us, or I'm right, it was, what's his name, Jane Jacks's dad. Because she was...
yes, he was one. He was a coach driver. Well, the coach driver, you called them that day. Right. Bus drivers, didn't they? No, there's no coaches.
Because Chris's brother went to Tech, and I know Chris quite well actually. He became managing director of Hodges the Builders in Burton.
Right. What about, was it you who told me many years ago, one of you, about going down to the village hall for the dentist for a school, walking there and back?
It was the chapel, wasn't it? Was it the chapel? No, he came. No,
he'd come to school.
He'd come to school.
He'd come to school and pull his tooth out.
In the cloakroom, as you went through the door, on the right, there was wash and base, and that was the girls' cloakroom, wasn't it? And you went in there. And in the old days, and I can remember the man used to come and knock the door at home while you weren't at school.
Yeah.
Yes. If you'd been ill, and they'd come and knock the door while
you weren't at school.
There was no messing about there. So you didn't have time. And in the old days, they wouldn't think twice of throwing the blackboard.
No.
Why, that if you didn't do it, or a clip around the ear hole.
McKnight, he used to have singing. He used to have the old fork and dab, and you'd do, and you come round, and make you sing, and if you weren't singing, he slapped you around the head. Sing, you beggar.
Yeah.
That was McKnight.
That was McKnight.
Well, he got a berry on all the time. His eyes used to flash about one side to the other.
And he was a crafty old dude. The stick come up as it went down. Mm-hmm. Oh yes.
He didn't mess about.
Didn't get away. And of course, I think there were Cubs and Scouts in them days, which the school helped run to a point, didn't they?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of school teachers from the guides and Scouts. Mary Ward was on, and Jack Hickson's daughter, she was another one, Scout leader or Cub leader. He told us. And of course, Mr. Hickson, was the manager of the co-op.
So was there any organised stuff for kids then?
Not really. Our show run after the war, and you used to have a fancy dress parade. And I won it twice, but I don't know how I did that.
I mean, like football team, we had that. You had that photo of mine, football team. Yeah. That's how we used to go out and play.
That's right.
Got a bike to Bromley, play the lads there. There was no organised people. We just played the show themselves,
The show then was on the Paul Pry field. When Paul Pry Hotel stood, as the saying goes. And the same with the cricket.
Big field, that wasn't
you couldn't get into the cricket. There was no junior cricket.
No.
I scored. I was a scorer. But it was all, on men. And if you scored and went away, you sat in the car to look them out the pub after the game. And Arthur Hood was in the groundsman, and he wouldn't let you know near the dressing rooms. Oh, God.
No.
And so how do you think it's changed for youngsters nowadays in the village?
Oh, life's a lot different, isn't it?
Life is entirely different. I mean, I'm an old cricketer. We built the new pavilion, but in fairness, they've took on. They've got, in the day of George Burton started it. They've now got how many junior teams? They've got girls teams. It's fantastic that they can get the children off the street playing cricket, and some develop and go through to the first team, which is entirely good.
See, there's no fields about now. That's a problem. Like when we were kids, we could wander anywhere. You could wander across the fields. When I first moved down Anson Road, Dainty's lived next door. John Dainty used to take us bird nesting and blowing eggs out and things like that
That's right.
around the fields. But it's not allowed now anyway. But that's what our life used to be.
Yeah,
I'm out all day.
You walked as far as Witcher across the fields.
No problem.
Potter's Lawn to the West.
Used to anywhere. Friday was walk. I mean, the road weren't half as busy. The roads aren't.
Down
aren't
Stratfold Lane,
Yeah.
the old wooden bridge.
there. Down the meadows.
Across
Yeah, all down the
Malibus
meadows.
cows used to go down there
Yeah,
in them days and walk
Yeah.
down. And they used to walk up Fox Lane into where the Walkford is now. The cows, the gate was on the road there, and they walked all.
yeah.
And the camel and whatever was up the road. Nobody bothered them.
No.
You see a lot of youngsters now jumping off the Bailey bridges into the rivers. Did you ever go swimming in the...
I didn't. You
I
did.
trained in the river. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was pushed in to learn to swim. Honestly, you were pushed in. If you didn't swim, mate, you'd drown.
And they used to be swim by the quarter mile lock as,
yeah.
the lock as well,
Yeah.
by the quarter mile bridge.
And it was filthy. You'd see sheep floating down and things like that years ago.
And things didn't bother, but they just accepted it. It went. And the saying goes that I don't remember, way before my time. An old painter that lived in the village called Lakin. He skated on the river track from Orrowers to Burton in the
Yeah.
1920s or something like that. A bloke called Toby Lakin,
Incredible.
who lived where the houses are in Dark Lane on the right. There was some cottages there. The Princes lived in one, didn't they? Gerald and George, he's bought
Oh,
them there.
yeah.
And old Toby Lakin, old painter, used to have a drop out bike. And I remember him, but I don't remember. I remember him, but I don't remember. He's obviously, I wasn't around when he died, I don't think. But I remember him, and my dad used to say that Toby Lakin was there.
So
And,
what do you remember, what was the village physically like then? Because we see it as it is now, but what's your memories of what the village looked like?
builders and builders,
Builders.
farms and shops.
Shop builders. There's a lot of work in the village. I mean,
Oh,
there was
that's
the
right,
farmers, there was builders, there was the coal merchants. There was loads of work. You didn't have to go out of the village to work. The oil mills.
There was about, well, they started at the top of Kent's Bridge, wasn't there?
Mm.
Because Mr. Cartwright, the undertaker,
Yeah.
and we were right. As you went to school, he looked through the window whether they're making a wheel or a coffin.
Yeah.
The other side of the road was Pocket Bill Rayworth. He moved
Yeah.
into that long building on the right. You got there for Jack Mays,
Yeah.
the builders.
Yeah.
Went just, I don't remember, just past there. It's part of the houses where Houghton's it used to be. They used to be painters and plumbers and that. But that they packed up after, just or during the war.
Yeah, I remember Houghton being there. That's
Yeah.
all. Mr. Houghton.
Then the other buildings you got as far as W.E. Wards. Then you went a little bit farther, it was Kent's on the left, which
Yeah.
is now Kent's place they call it. You went farther down and there was Bannisters who were big builders in them days. They
It was, yeah.
a lot for, well, it was Borough Burton-on-Trent in them days. And on the other side, Arthur Ward, Diane's father, set up. He set up work. When I left school, I went to work for Wee Wards, and he actually left that summer to start up on his own. That'd be about 1952, something like that. And then Rayworth moved back to his house eventually on the A38. I don't think there's any other builders then, was there?
No.
We got farmers then.
We've got chip shops.
The farm.
Mark Taylor's.
Mark Taylor's.
Mark Taylor's.
Mark Taylor's.
What do you want, duck bod?
That's right. You have 2 eggs, make sure you eat
Yeah,
one.
fag in the mouth.
Fag in
And
the
they have
mouth
to
and the
stop doing
pastry.
the chips, honestly.
Or the
You-
pastry, which is what she would do.
Yeah.
But she survived again, you know.
Yeah, she was.
Years.
So what other shops were there then?
Well, he started at the top again, if you want to
Me.
stop by the village. Dicko's,
Mr. Dixon's, yeah.
Dickinson.
Mar Dix, yeah.
Mar Dickinson.
Mar
It was
Dickinson.
the off licence. Then we came then down to the co-op.
The co-op, yeah.
Co-op,
The old co-op. Yeah, the old
Which
co-op.
is in now. Mr. Hickson was the
Yeah.
manager.
Manager.
Uh,
Dennis Pickering worked there. didn't he?
Doug Pickering worked for a while, didn't he?
Mm,
Fred
yeah.
Smith.
Yeah.
They all wore behind the counter,
Yeah.
wore white coat and a white apron.
White tape,
And
yeah.
what was the number, Colin? My mother's number
I
was
can't remember.
17962. If you went to co-op, they wrote your little
Two,
ticket
six, four, three,
to get
four.
your divvy.
Yeah, it did be number.
17962.
Yeah.
Then you walk down, then there's Willie Fisher at the post office. Will Fisher. Next door was Mrs. Rowley, Mrs. Ford, was it? Little sweet shop.
Yeah, it's a sweet shop next door. Isn't it?
And on the corner.
She had the
right-
cleft lip and mouth.
That's right,
didn't
that's right, left it.
she?
And on the corner, opposite that white place on the corner, was a chemist, and Mrs. Parton kept that. Do you remember the chemist? Mrs. Parton.
No, I don't remember.
Yeah, that was when I was near to a grasshopper. that she kept the chemist then. And then you went from there down to Coates. Opposite was Dolman's.
The opposite Dolman's, yeah.
Yes, but they used to have the shed, and the cyclists used to meet there.
Yeah.
In the cycle
There's
shed.
a cafe at the back, weren't there?
Cafe at the back. And then we got a bit farther on. There's no chip shop there like that chip shop then. Then there was Tussler Green.
Tussler Green.
The
Jerry Green.
Jerry Green next to Arthur Prince's coal yard. And then next to that was Barker's. And then we went down to Harold Cowling's on the left, wasn't it?
Mrs. Taylor's chip shop.
Mrs. Taylor's chip shop, sorry.
Then there was
Harold Cowling's, who set up, and he ironmonger, wasn't he?
There was a cobbler there next door.
And then the cobbler, Gandhi Williams is next door, the fag shop. So he used to sell the cigarettes.
That's right.
That's right. Then the cobblers, Hill. And on the opposite side was Horsley's.
On the corner shop. And
Horsley's shop. And they had a room that did 2 wedding parties.
Oh, big wedding parties. And beyond that was the air raid shelter.
And the air raid shelter, that's right.
And the air raid shelter beyond that. It was a plane, that was a kid.
Yeah. Then, as you say, well, the Paul Pry was there then, obviously. Years ago, and I think before mine and Colin Tom, there was another pub on the end of the cobblers called the White Horse or White something.
I don't remember that.
Have you got that in it?
The White Hart?
White Hart, no, the White Hart.
That was by the Georgian Dragon.
Yes, that was W.E.'s yard. And that was
Yeah.
known as the White Hart Works.
Yeah.
If you saw the sign, W.E. Ward, we Ward.
So where was the other pub? By the A38, you mean? By
Yeah, where
yes, that's right.
where
I've
George
got
Burton
pictures
used
of
to
that,
live.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
there is it was before my time.
Little
Yeah.
corner pub like
I mean, I
that.
remember
That's
the
right,
Paul
yeah.
Fry and had a pot or two in there myself.
It became a cafe afterwards, or a guest house or something like
Yeah,
that.
there's a lot of
But
little
they
pubs on the
got
road.
knocked
As you go
down
down
then.
to Burton, there was all on every bridge was a pub.
Yeah,
Really?
Flint, Barton.
So what was the road like before it became a motorway?
Oh,
Well, the main road itself run where the slip road is now.
yeah,
Well,
it was
the
tight,
Street.
but the vehicles were narrower then, weren't they?
And then you went
look at how
across,
wide they are
very
now.
short across, didn't you,
Yeah,
to the Croxall Road.
yeah.
And Paul Pride over the crossing. But it was a fatal road, really. A lot of the accidents
Happened, yeah.
happened there and were caused by lorries carrying steel, not with ropes, not chains they've got today. If they break suddenly, the load slip forward.
Slip
and kill the
forward,
driver.
There's no
And there was quite a few people, I won't say few,
health
that
and
were
safety.
killed turning into the village, coming from Burton,
Yeah,
to get across the traffic. And the Paul Pry was made for it because there was the coal slab in there. And the inquest swelled at the Paul Pry as well.
yeah,
Yes, so good history. And there were 6 railway cottages then,
yeah.
not 4 as there is today.
Well, they took half of them off, didn't
They
they?
took 2 off when the Paul Pry was knocked down to build.
The road, yeah.
It made it a dual carriageway.
Yeah.
But you still had to sneak across to get to Croxall Road, didn't you?
Yeah.
There was quite a few accidents, especially in the fog. You couldn't see them.
It was because Arthur Prince had on the coal yard, he had on the
And
station
in,
yard.
in the store. And in the old days, again, tell me, all the lot of materials the builders had came into the yard, the station yard.
Station yard,
And
yeah.
W.
Sorted
Ward,
in.
again, perhaps you know all about this history, that he got horses and they used to fetch them, and Sonny Dolman, who you know, is about used to fetch all the bricks and the cement from
Yeah.
the station in. And I've never seen cattle in the station yard, but I've seen cattle on the trains, on them carriages going down, and all the coal yard.
Nice.
And Weavers, I think, had their coal from out the coal yard for a while as well.
Well, yeah, you have
Oh,
a
you-
truck dropped in there, yeah, but
Yeah.
Arthur had a place there as well, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, yeah, so after
Towards
had a place opposite the village hall,
Yeah,
where them 2 big houses are built.
yeah.
And I
That's
think you
right.
can remember, Arthur Prince in the old days used to collect the refuse and tip
That's
it
how
up
he
to the back
started
of
up,
the
man.
lorry.
That's how he started up and
Yeah,
catching
and
that.
taking it, and they tipped it to the mole pits,
Mm.
Is that top of Fox Lane?
top of Fox
Yeah.
Lane. That's right.
What's under
yes.
there, not buried under there.
If going back before, and then in the, in the old days again, old W. Ward, a very forward-thinking man, and he had a shed built over what they call Ridges Crossing, which it's gone now, the crossing house, as you know. It was a big shed, and Sonny Dolman and my old man used to get his, because my grandfather opened the gates, he lost his arm on the railway. They used to have a race at night, and the horse, it was called Ward Shed, it was there for years. Malibus used it for the sheep and cattle, and obviously it's gone now, but everybody knew Ward Shed. as you walk down Ridge's Crossing Lane,
Yeah.
you could come out at Whitemay in the old days before it all got ripped up and gravelled and so forth.
You were talking about the Orwa show earlier on. What do you remember about that?
I can remember it in 19 when it was on the Paul Pry field,
Yes, I remember the Paul Park.
and they used to have a fancy dress for the kids. There was tents, and in latter years, when it was still there, Horace Mills always had a big stand, and we wards and my man used to erect this place for this stand, and they used to entertain all, and he sponsored quite a bit of the show. He was president for a few years. It was a nice little show then.
So what sort of things would you see if you went there?
There was horticulture, was
Proper horticulture, but then you got people going in buying stuff from everywhere.
The same goes in Pratchett, that Dick Cluley was one. Well, he drove a lorry for Bass.
Yeah,
His garden went to Halifax, and the Lindsay brothers, when they lived in this cottage of the railway, they got a son in Wolverhampton. His garden went to Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
So they, I mean, a lot of it. If a bloke won in Wolverhampton with his spuds, they came to Horace under the name of Lindsay, and he Dick Cluley got a mate, and another good gardener, Bob Taylor. He lived. As you turn his houses still stand, but they built houses in his garden. As you turn onto A38, that big houses. But Bob Taylor lived one side and his sister lived the other. And his garden was the length down to a bungalow, the bungalow, which again, and Taylor lived there. Jack Taylor, John Taylor's granddad lived there. But Bob Taylor was a good gardener.
Lots of the old people work, that was a life, wasn't it?
And
Must not.
I remember one year, my dad used to help him. One thing and another. And he said, "Where are these 6 roses, Walter?" I said, "I don't know, but what do you think?" He said, "We'll put them in your Ian's name." And they've put 6 roses in the different name, one for price. That's how it worked, you know what I mean?
So were there any sort of
There was cattle.
cattle? Were any like
Horse
All
jumping.
those cattle all the time, yeah.
Horse jumping with horse jumping.
Horse jumping, yeah. Show
Yes,
jumping, yeah.
Tug of war. Used to have a
The tug of war teams used to come down, yeah.
In them days. Yeah.
Big ugly men, you know.
And then in the middle of
Really?
in the middle of the field was the changing rooms for the football.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
all hook was in the middle of the field for the
Yeah.
changing room. Yeah, for the hook.
Yeah.
And there was an air raid shelter, you say, in the entrance to the field. There was an old
Yes, to change that in the
woodfish.
finish. The
And
changing that in
yeah,
the
the
finish.
show at one time, before it moved around the village, used to keep all the stuff in there.
Mm.
I was only this big and I wasn't involved. But then my dad got older, as I got older I was involved. But in them days, we used to have to borrow a field technically,
Yeah.
all round the village, and it finished at Latty, as you know. It Fradley for a number of years, it Woolies. But I can remember the Speller, where they had gig racing.
And over the crossing, that was on the right, went over there a couple of times, wasn't it?
Well, it went there on the Speller on the right, and they say you had bookies there doing the, what do we call it, with the, just the pilot on and the horse whizzing round on time.
Oh yeah,
Big
we enjoyed
road,
that racing,
and
and probably
they had
racing around,
bookies
weren't
there,
they?
yeah.
Yeah.
Then it went to where the Arboretum is on the Rattlejack Field, Jack Swinfields.
Yeah.
It went from there, I remember it being up Fox Lane, opposite the show field it is now, on Malabar's big field,
Yeah.
John Malabar's big field. It went to Fradley, or opposite Jim Williams's,
Yeah.
opposite the Fradley Arms, that
Fradley
farm
Arms,
there.
yeah. Fradley Arms is there.
It
Yeah.
went there, that was you, my mum died, that was 83.
That was a bit tricky, wasn't it? 'Cause it was on the main road.
And then
You know.
it was down for 1 year with a mess in John Malabar, they had to use the field. As you go over the Navy, then in that field there, because the road's gone through it now, the field went right down the side of the road, didn't it? On the
Mm,
left.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And that's where it was for a year. Then I've only show I've missed since after the war, I've only missed one. And that's when a chap called John Wright worked at the mill in the offices, took me to see the BRMs or the van, whatever it was, at Silverstone on that day. And I've never missed one since, but I've got no medals, but then there's I need one for it.
So a big question. How do you think the village changed? I'm thinking of good things as well. How do you think the village changed in the time you've been here?
I suppose, there's no good point. Yeah, there is good point.
It's not a village to us now.
We
It's
used to walk in
full
the
of.
field. This was Turner's Field, and along here, along back on, was the sewage brook.
Mm.
And when it came across here then, went to the sewage pumping works here, and it was pumped across to the A38. But it's changing respect. There's more people. As we've got older, we're strangers. And we're both born and bred.
People look at you as strangers here.
Strangers now.
You know, you're both from the village.
I mean, there's a character on the field where your houses were called Audley Malabar. He did this excellent WD stuff. And Audley, what a character.
All the characters are gone.
Yeah.
There's a lot of characters when we were young.
Gone.
You know.
Audley was a kind of man, he'd do a deal with anybody. But the working man, he would look after. But if a man who got plenty, he'd rob him.
Yeah.
And he was open to that, he admitted that. And he used to have these machines to do up, hadn't they?
Yeah.
And he did a lot of XWD stuff there. Oh, yeah. I remember my dad buying some tyres off him, airplane tyres, never been used. And we had kept pigs on the A38. A bit of mystery. And my dad used to cut the tyre round, following the tread all around with a knife. And we used it to feed the pigs out in the field as troughs. And those were, the kind of things you want. And in my latter days, before I was married, used to get in the crowd and old bugger used to get drunk.
Well, there was a room named after him when we first.
That's right.
The Audley Malabar room,
That's
wasn't
right.
there?
And we used to take him and boy yours through that gate there across to his house. Put him in bed. Excuse me, half an hour later, be back in the pub laughing his bloody head off.
Yeah.
After he'd struggled, got him up them stairs, and the stairs in his house like that. There'd be Peter Watts, Brian Allen, Jim Hilton, Mick Weaver. Oh, characters.
There must be some good things about the village then. There are some, I mean, like, over the weekends, seeing people walking around, looking at gardens.
Well, yeah, I think that is a good thing. I think one of the better things for us is the Arboretum in latter years. I mean, it's put Horace on the map, hasn't it? If they can pronounce it. But how we're so lucky to get a thing like that where people travel miles to see. And they travel miles to Morris now. But if you're lucky and get the station back in, you get more people perhaps.
What about other things to do with the community?
Well, there wasn't, was there? You had trips out the local pubs in Manor, and they used to have what they called a club, and they used to pay so much. Then once you had a trip to the seaside.
Yeah,
or on the
Skeggy
coach, or on the train to Skeggy, or on the train to Blackpool. And they used to link up with the social club in Burton.
Yeah.
And then the train would come from say Lichfield, pick up at Orrow's, go into Burton, all the crates of ale were on, and then off it went, and you spent the day in Blackpool, and in latter years you said they went to Skegness. And again, the coach, I remember Harper's of Chasetown used to come back, 3 or 4 coaches from the Dragon, the crates of ale on the front and in the back, and it was a drunken day, but it was a free day, and I mean there was no such thing as drink and drive, it didn't matter, but people enjoyed the day, whether it rained or snowed, you went and that was it.
No holiday. There's no holidays like that now.
Like that. I went into force in 1959. I went on the train, but not long after that. If you went to go now, you went on the train. Off you went to Burton on the train sometimes, depending which part of Burton you want to go to. And in the old days, and I can remember a number of people that picked the train at 8 o'clock in the morning and go back at 5:30 at night on the train.
Yeah.
And there was Darcy on, Tom Shemmons, 1 or 2 more.
And more used to go from there as well. Across the main. I used to see them I was in the yard with Arthur Prince.
Yeah. These people went, you could see them going in the morning and coming back.
Yeah.
And I didn't know Roger Hunt, I was talking to him a few months ago. And we talked about the trains, and he said his mother got the tea ready when she heard the train coming in, pulling out of Orrow's station, 5:30 at night, because his dad was on it.
Yeah.
It was quite an important part of the village life.
Oh, yeah.
And
some of them people come off the train used to go up the Paul Pry for a drink on the way home.
A lot used to do it.
I mean, the farmers' community met in the Paul Pry and the Dragon, and they tell me that there was an old farmer from Thompson from Croxall.
Yeah.
He had a gig, and he used to be pie high. Put him in the gig, turned north, he just took him home. There was no over the railway crossing and the new buildings farm. And then I can remember now on a Thursday, I went to Tech when I came out of the services, and my dad wouldn't let me in the car. I used to go to Tech. I had to drop it off at the Paul Pry, because all this on the Thursday night was beer night, where all the farmers were in there. The Blants, Mr. Shuker, that's one we haven't mentioned. Mr. Shook had an agricultural business.
Oh yeah, across over the
Over bridge, Canal Bridge, where what's her name died.
Sean Dyer.
Sean Dyer, yeah.
That was Margaret and Janet Shooter's dad.
Yeah.
And they got, there's another Mr.
I
Shooter.
suppose Margaret's told you all about that, hasn't she?
Many years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And they had been there, the Blunt brothers from Witchner, which were all part of them, the
Yeah.
Potters. And over latter years, during latter years with the past Colin, that is it on 14th of November, Prince Charles was born. My dad's is on the 15th of November, and Fred Fletcher's, who's Sally Fletcher and Colin Fletcher's dad, was on the 16th. I used to celebrate them 3 days for 3 important men in the village. But the village, they've built, the village has got character. Look at them houses. Lichfield District Council let anything go by on Swinfield Farm. In the middle of the village.
Yeah.
It just spoilt the village. And then it wasn't so bad on the main street opposite Bar, because they're quite reasonable. And then they built
Yeah,
there.
it's like a co-op, isn't it? That was
That's
like
right.
60s built, just
The co-op, then you see.
Yeah, the
now
60s
they've got
was a
landmark.
particularly
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
it began to work. Well,
Yeah.
it's after the war, people started, the money started to come back, didn't it? And I'd say, and then, as Colin said, everybody was employed in the village. A lot of people.
Yeah. You didn't go out the village to work.
Yeah.
If you didn't
The
go to
other one
push
went
bike, that was
Witchner.
it.
A few were employed at
If you went to
Witchner.
Marley Tars and
Marley
places
Tars.
like that,
Witchner Hall, when Mr. Harrison kept it,
Yeah.
they got a bricklayer, carpenter job, and woodmen,
Yeah.
and gamekeepers. They all, just went up the village. And perhaps the odd one, but everybody biked everywhere.
Yeah.
When I went in the car,
They haven't got cars, eh?
and you work Saturday mornings, but all the shops shut at 1 o'clock on a Saturday. The village was not dead on a Sunday, but that's what people did. Went to church. I can see now. I was in the choir, and you got there. It was 11 o'clock service in them days. It was, but there was quite a number of people there that went. That was part of the village, with the best suits on, if you like.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
part of the village.
That was right,
Part
yeah.
of the
One
village.
set of clothes for playing about in, and
But then said to go to
best
church.
clothes for Sunday, and that was
Sunday,
it.
your Sunday best.
Get back home from church and change.
Changed again. But that's how, and I can remember all we were going up then. Had Mr. Garrett, who was a warden, Matt Knight was the choir master, and Mrs. Ball played the organ. She was quiet, and it was and you went quite back on a Friday. There was no messing about, because it was on a Monday. If you hadn't been before, where were you last night? You went to choir practice.
Yeah.
And you see, the then in them days, well, they've all gone now. Nev Ferris, I think, was in the choir. Vic Bennett, he was another one. It went through the choir. Brian Weaver, that went through the choir into the seniors from the juniors. So there was a waiting list in them days.
Right. So what about life as a teenager? What sort of things were you able to do as a teenager in the village?
Well, really, we shouldn't say there wasn't a lot. There wasn't really. If you're lucky enough, you could play cricket. They did let you into the second team, perhaps. They had the home cup, was a bit of a attraction in the village, wasn't it?
Yeah, I got
Teenagers.
my first cup in '58.
But then
Bill Simpson,
there's
Veteran.
characters that like
14.
there was another chip shop in the old days, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Mrs. Simpson.
Oh,
Bill
Bill Simpson, old Bill. Then.
You had a place you could take stuff.
You don't remember Bill Simpson?
Remember Bill Simpson? Then you went in the chip shop where it was. In
No.
the place you could have fish and chips, you could have some snuff or have your hair cut.
One and
Or place a bed. He was a bookies runner.
Everything, yeah. I was at the mill, from the mill to take bets down
Yeah,
to Bill's place
that's right.
at dinner time. When you
He
had your
went
break
to
at
Charlie
Lewis Mill.
Horsley,
Yeah.
who took him to Burton, I think. And put him-
Yeah.
What about snooker and things like that? 'Cause
Well, there was a snooker, but they didn't let the
You
younger
could play
ones
up
in.
there. You could play up there.
You
When
could
you're a
play up there,
teenager, you had to
afterwards
let them
you-
know you were there.
But again, in my dad's old days, they had quite a good snooker club.
The Scout headquarters.
It's glad it is now.
Mm.
But the Scout headquarters were down, when I first went in, were down opposite by Barker's old shop, where Mrs. Rice used to live. There was a wooden shed at the back, and that's where the choir, and then big doors used to open on the front.
So do you remember anything happening at the village hall? Was there anything organised there?
The things there used, local dances were on. They had whisk drives and there, didn't they?
It wasn't derelict for a while, weren't
It
it?
was, and it wasn't like you say. The doors on the front and whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And then wedding receptions were held in there, dances. They used to hold the harvest supper in there for the
Yeah,
church.
I remember having, when I was youngish, not between teenager and, that we had films in there, some
That's
films.
right, Clifton Films, wasn't it?
Yeah, somebody's come to see
Little
films
green
like
van used to
yeah,
come on a Saturday
Black,
morning.
Black
Saturday.
Knight and things like that,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Lancelot and all that sort
They
of
used to have
stuff.
the rosy I think it was a bob to go into, like
Yeah,
shilling
yeah.
to go in.
yeah. Then with the,
Clifton's Country Cinema it was called, wasn't
That's
it?
right, Clifton Country
yeah,
Cinema, that's it.
I remember going to those, yeah.
Yeah,
See those. Otherwise it was Saturday morning to Lichfield to
To
watch
Lichfield
to see
in
the-
latter years as I got, I suppose, before I went to the forces, I used to go on the pub, to the pub in Lichfield somewhere to play darts in the Lord Rodney. And there was
So
a
were
lot
the
of
pubs-
soldiers in Lichfield in them days, the barracks were.
So were the pubs okay for teenagers to go in the village?
Yeah, you went to bed. Up 3 years, they had a side door.
But most people knew you anyway, so
Yeah.
if you're not
But then
messing
in
about, you're
later
in
years-
trouble. 'Cause,
Before I went to
You
the
were-
forces and that, yeah. But the pubs weren't too bad. It wasn't 18 you could go in anyway.
mm,
And there was the Snug in the Crown, wasn't there, in the corner?
yeah,
The Dragon. Never used to be the
you've got
Willie very
the
often.
Willie outdoor, little outdoor,
That's
sit in
right.
there.
Well, the Crown had got an outdoor and you went through the main door and there
Yeah.
was the hatch
Yeah, that's, yeah.
through the door there, and the Dragon was up the side. Before you went to the back where the bit juts out, there's a door there. You went down that entrance, turned left. You came. There was another. Actually, there was a seat in there. So if your mum and dad were in there, they'd pass your drink through. A drink
Yeah.
towel,
That's right, yeah.
a bag of crisps. if
Don't
you were
tell,
up in them
don't
days.
tell nobody.
But I remember on Sundays, that going back to the child, that my mum and dad and Mr. and Mrs. Darman, they went for a walk on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah,
That's the Forest Fradley Junction, back. And in the old days, Mrs. Ted Dom and her dad kept the bell in at Fradley, and they used to call there for a drink on a Sunday night and walk back to Horace. That was another night in the summer.
mm.
And then again, it didn't matter, there was no traffic about,
No, you could just,
and
you could
they
just
either
wander.
walked up the canal and that's what they did, and back down the Coventry Canal to where.
Do you remember, was there much happening on the canals when you were kids? Was it?
Not really, was
Not
it?
really,
It wasn't-
no.
no.
It was still a few barges going up and down with people on, you know. but
Working
that fish-
barges, a
it
few
seemed to
working
lull,
barges.
and they used to be miserable people. If you were sliding on there in the winter, they used to bring a boat down to break it up, aren't they?
Yeah.
So you couldn't do. Mr. McKnight used
Yeah.
to slide with us.
He tested it first.
Yeah,
He
right,
tested it
we used to
first.
slide up and down on a slide, and he used to be with us.
Yeah. I remember Walkfield being like that. I remember, because it was all lumpy, weren't it, Walkfield, like that. And when it was flooded, he used to freeze over, he used to skate on that as well.
Yeah. Where the cricket
Big
is,
tube, yeah.
they used to have lots and us young. That's why I've got sugar luck to do with the cricket. I was one of the few. There was few of us, and we had old people on the committee. And fairness, at that time, when it all happened, Mr. Stubbs was chairman, Norman Stubbs, and there was about 6, Peter Watts and Mark wanted to move and put the wooden one that came from by your back garden, and we put it up there, and we put on a wooden base. I wasn't married then, and we set it all up. I bought a dumper level and we got brick, and we did it to sell up in the Ron Row as well as Mum's tract. We moved it all, but Norman Stubbs was with us then. He was behind us, and in fairness, the others come over slowly, but we had like old George Thomas was one, and now you can't do that.
You wouldn't have change, would
You
you? A lot of
don't
old
have
folks
change.
don't like
And we got
change.
the
do
old green one down, we had a bonfire, and the tea hut, it was known, is now bought off by the Bowls Club for £100
they? Mhm.
and was put where it is. And before the war, my aunt built that at Wee Wards. So, but Kirkland, that's why. And then when the other one burnt down, I did some drawings. I was doing this extension. I did some drawings on the back. Richard Hill was president, who was chairman of the planning committee, and we got permission within a couple of days to rebuild the brick one. And unfortunately, poor old George Burton was. So we just insured with a new company, and it was a bloke on there 38, and we just took it all out, and we got the full insurance, and we made it up. We got enough money to build the one we've got now. And in fairness, we built it all. We did this hours of brick lane. We did 3 hours with chippies. We did all the woodwork, put the roof on, did all the hang the doors. Derek Forrester helped us with the floor. Dave Dawes, who lived in the village, worked for a bar fitting company. We built a bar, we put the kitchen in, and all the dressing rooms. And originally, you know, and the new one, the old one, we did use for a while as the tea room for the dressing rooms. We moved that. I can remember I got a minivan. Malcolm Arkham had got a Morris Minor. We dragged the base in November across all the lawns, and it was dark on headlights to move that. And that's how. But we got help then. But now that I'm due respect to kids, you had to, the old days when I first started, you had to pull the roller with half the big roller.
The big roller,
You had to pull it across. You had to stop after you'd been and pull the roller. There's no, I'm going home. No, you're not. You're pulling the roller. And it was a horse-driven one. I never remember the horse. But they say it was horse-driven, and they used to put pads on the horse's feet so he didn't mark the square. Then eventually we got a motor roller through Audley Malabar again, and Clary Company used to look after it if it broke down. For years that motor kept going and going.
So there's a lot of I think people still chip in now, it's just different.
Exactly.
You can't do it. You
Don't
can't
get me
just
wrong,
go and
I
build
mean
something,
what they've done
can
over
you?
the last 25, 30 years, when I was president in the 70s, right, and in the 90s I think I was president, and in fairness, you know, hey, oh, there's a red man just come by.
It's your lawn then, Ian.
He got parcels from next door.
Sorry, just a big red flash went
Flash
by.
Oh, I
across.
see, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, what they've done, in fairness to Tim Aston and the crew now, they've done a fantastic job.
There's lots
you
of
know,
work involved now.
And we
isn't
did
there?
have, when Mark home in the village, we opened the village cricket with the Ladies International Cricket, England's International, where Rachel Hay, you've seen all that, came, and you know, that put us on the map a little bit. And then again, women's cricket's like ours, it's come along, hasn't it?
Yeah,
So
it's like
them
football the
days.
same, isn't it? I mean, football's
That's right.
moved on. Life's moved on.
Used to have, was it Aston Villa players used to come and play, and had some charity matches for one or two players that got hurt.
Yeah.
And they used to come and play, didn't they?
Yeah.
And you'd meet one or two. I always played cricket on a Sunday afternoon, and some of these teams from Walsall would bring back the old player that played for them, but played football.
Yeah.
And
Did you ever get up to any mischief when you were kids?
Scrumping and things like
Scrumping,
that.
yes.
Yeah, scrumping and because for food, isn't it?
you know,
we didn't do
we'd chap us out
damage.
somewhere.
Do damage.
But by God, no, we used to have to go tater picking. We got a fortnight off from school.
You went to work. They went to work.
And then you bartered a bit. Somebody paid 7 or 6 and they were 10 bob. You went to that one.
Yeah, yeah.
And you bring as many potatoes home as you could carry.
The ladies.
But they were like this, weren't they?
I don't know if people told you about when they take the prams and the babies on
God.
top of the tractor and trailer. The babies in the pram, but the babies weren't in the pram coming back. They'd be full of potatoes. Full of potatoes.
The farmers knew, but there weren't that many.
After tipper and all them, never used to bother.
Never used to bother.
It was part of your money, I suppose.
And the potatoes were that big, weren't they?
Yeah.
Honestly,
Yeah.
they were like that, weren't they?
Yeah.
Long.
Oh yeah.
And you used to take them all day to roast them in the oven.
Well, it used to be
And
nice to have a big bonfire in the field while you're
Yeah.
working
Put
and
some
chuck potatoes
smaller
on
Smaller ones on.
and eating.
That's when we pulled the tops.
Yeah. But I used to help Arthur Prince when I was 7 years old on the back of his
I was
wagon.
at coaches on a bike.
Yeah,
Good
7
man,
years old I
village.
was on the back of the wagon pulling to the side down Anson Road for him.
The
Threepence,
I used to
he
get
gave me
shit-
threepence
I used
and
to get
threepence,
2
my
bob on a
daughter,
Saturday
sister and brother.
So, I mean, at one time, even we'd always have a Saturday job.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
There'd always be a job
yeah.
to do.
Somebody, I mean, I think the co-op did, but I was at coaches. I used to go around the village,
I was
play more than
dumping coal and that,
and
doing
spin
anything
the-
for money, you know.
spin the
Mother took
washing
money off me, I got home, the money went off me.
And Mum, I got 2 bob on a Saturday morning.
Half a pound a day or so.
On a Friday in school holidays, I was there. I used to go pig killing at coaches when in school holidays. I used to go around on a Saturday afternoon with Peter's dad, fetching pigs in from Alford, Kings Bromley, to kill for the person down the house. And I used to have them, and my parents had got them down the garden, and coaches used to kill them, and they used to bone them out and make the bacon flitches and the hams, and coaches would salt them, and you pick them up 3 weeks later after being in salt brine. And I can see them hanging at home now on the wall, and on top of the landing there was 2 big hooks where the hams hung, and the knife come across. But God, it was salty.
Because there's no opportunities for kids doing Saturday jobs now. There's not even
There's no paper around, nothing's all gone.
That was
hasn't
the
it?
lifeblood of
That's
youngsters
right.
at
I
one
mean,
time,
I'm seeing
wasn't
our
it?
coaches, Tom DeRose and them in on Saturday or Monday.
There's no Saturday
big
work
flat.
anywhere.
Coaches.
There's no little labouring jobs
shoot them
anywhere.
in the
They're all
tub,
gone.
scrape
Everything's
them.
gone.
Well, kids don't want to cows today of them doing them all about a bloody pig or anything else.
No.
I mean, I've seen them come to Irish show in the latter years. Oh look, there's a pig, you know. You think, oh,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, the farms are all gone, haven't they? The farms are.
We just took that as life, and
Yeah.
the cows went up the village. You just let them go by, or
Yeah,
walk behind them.
cast them up in a bucket.
You got to walk behind them, you know.
Yeah.
Same with the horse.
Yeah, I mean, all that's gone, hasn't
It's
it?
gone.
Yeah.
Now
It's
the
sad
farms
that's
have gone,
come to
isn't
life.
there?
There's nothing left for the
Well,
kids.
if you watch, there was a programme on the Jersey last night going off to Bod, and that one girl even got a machine to push the slurry out of the shed, not a tractor. It was all robotic, and as it went on, you know, it's just concerned. We're compost mud now. We didn't compost in the old days. you had to load them up from the farmer.
Yeah.
So what do you think about things like the Orals Arts Festival and stuff like that that's happened over recent years?
It's brilliant, honestly.
Very
brilliant.
good,
It's
very good
life
for
in
the
the village up and made village life again. Because let's face it was in a bit of a dead hole, wasn't it? I mean, they used to run a little total Bill Simpson and Charlie Wood. You paid a shilling, that was an excitement in the week, you know. To have it on the tote, it was drawn, you could win 10, 15 quid, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, bloody hell. But, you know, things have changed. It seemed to get into, I don't know, the church didn't go like it should have, but I don't know. It was probably going, when Audrey Morris there, she was very good. She run the Mothers Union, she run the Women's Institute.
She was, yeah, she
motivated everybody.
She was really
And I
hands-on.
can remember, and my parents, I can remember Mrs. Coates, used to have the church supper, harvest supper, and there was potted meat, there was tongue, there was homemade pickles, everything was homemade.
Yeah.
And there was, I can remember my mother now making the pickles, and on the Monday afternoon everything went down to the village all set up, and it was fantastic. That was nearly the highlight, one of the highlights of the year. And the show was going, and it was, I don't know, I remember Reg Gold being the groundsman, Jim Williams. That's how you used to dig all the post holes.
Yeah.
We got modern, we had a boring machine to dig them, and our man
But
said...
there's a lot of things now that bring the village together, aren't they, I guess?
Yes, I think the show, but then you look at the show committee, how many are not in Irish people on the show committee? But it's a people's end like it, doesn't it? There are a few, but when you think that Litchfield show, Tamworth show, have all gone. Ashby show has gone now, hasn't it? Where a lot of them, when you heard the meeting of the week, to get the horses now, we're having to pay 100 quid a horse to get them here. Where in the old days, they come by the stable, the lorry load type of thing.
Yeah.
And
I think there is a core of people in the village who wants to do stuff, though.
oh
don't you
yes,
think?
oh yeah, I think there is, and I think it's getting better. Over the last 10 years, it's got better. Through the Arts Festival, the show's got more popular,
Yeah.
and I think, in fairness, David Butcher, without him,
David Butcher did a lot of work.
you know, and he was a bloke.
for the village.
Get up, you get up. But you take it, and I think with that persistence with people, Mr. Jim, you know, and him and Dr. Platt used to go on the RAC rally.
Yeah.
And Jim Platt, I've seen him reverse down Welfare Road, quick and look good, but he went forward. And the Hillman Minks. But they were the kind of people that were in the village.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
The characters are
suppose.
all gone. I mean, it's like the show now. Lorries used to, when I was on the road at the brewery, I used to have a wagon for the kiddies.
Mm.
But now you can't have them. I just
No.
just go and get one.
But
But now you
it's-
can't
it's
see insurance and everything.
Insurance and
Yeah.
tackle.
It's killed everything like that.
It's a pain.
That's where the trailer. But I think on the other side, it's in some ways, it's making the kids walk. How many kids walk to school? In our days, that you went from Overley to Orris, walked it.
Oh, we have to walk.
The Swinfields worked from Overley, the Whittinghams, the Arnolds, the Claxtons, all from Fradley Junction. Come rain, come snow. Us that lived in there always late. They were there always before time.
The thing is, there's nowhere in the village that you can't walk to school. I mean, you can walk from one end of the village to the other in
But
10
some of these
minutes,
people,
can't you?
instead of doing that, they go and park by the co-op and walk across the road. It's unreal. You live in the village.
I mean, I know there's some suspicious characters. I don't think in the village schools, in the towns, where people, you know, are frightened to let the kids go.
I don't
But
think that's a big thing. really.
It's what does. We've said this many mornings. The kids up here go on scooters, and I love the kids. Don't get me wrong, but cars are going up. The parents.
They don't
are
hang
kids
about
up
some
there.
cars, that's the trouble.
Well, you know, kid on a bike. We've all fell off our bikes. We've all fell off our scooters. You only want to fall in that road. No, you know, I'm not against children. I think the school is good for them. I think we're lucky to have a school like we've got. Where you think other villages haven't got the school we've got.
Yeah.
John Taylor's got a good representative.
Yeah.
I've got to get my 2 lads that went there, and I think sometimes perhaps they're better going there and going on and getting a trade. When you think what you pay tradesmen today.
Yeah, absolutely. And your lad's done all right out of it, hasn't he?
When I first started, 9p an hour.
I think life's different. I mean, there weren't that much difference between wages years ago, were there?
52.5 hours a week was my flat week.
Mm.
In the summer there wasn't a week, it was when you were knocked off. And in the old days, you're right, Peter, because wages, I can remember the days, and I was in the joiner's shop, or the tradesman got a penny an hour rise, and the labourer got halfpenny an hour rise. There was 50% difference. But you can't do it. That doesn't work today. And people were quite happy with that kind of money. They all went to the pub. They all had a good standard.
But the smoke and the beer, that's all they wanted, the old chaps. That's all they had, didn't they? You know, the gardens, that was life.
You can take that back when they built the canals, the navies.
Yeah.
And if you watch the old films when all the blokes were drunk half the time because they're making that much money and they're only on but, shilling a week, a shilling a day. But when your paper cost a halfpenny and the pint was on perhaps a penny a pint or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just characters. But I think in my parents, now my dad's down here, the views, they all they did. We went to the pub with Arthur Prince, he was one of my dad's, one or two more, and they used to meet.
From Lad Arthur was.
They used to, the Dragon, the William was one of the favourites, because one of Mr. Dolman, Glenn Dolman's, people kept the William the Fourth. And I think the local Rogers never bothered. But they're all at work next day. Come what day, they were at work next day at 7:30 or whatever time, 6 o'clock, they were there. Because, that's what they had to do. And I can remember my dad, you tell these stories sometimes. Arthur Prince was in the William with my dad and one or two more. And it was winter time and old Ted Dawson must have been chucking him out and they swung the coat. And Arthur Prince swung his coat and knocked this vase over. And the publican says to him, I wouldn't have had that bloody vase broken for 100 quid. They turned around when he got it broke for nothing. But that's what they did. And they didn't come out fighting. No. They played darts, they played dominoes in there. And they went home, got up, because whatever time, 6 o'clock it was a farm. When I was at Weewards and it was 7 o'clock. And we didn't get bank holidays. We got Christmas Day and Boxing Day. But if Christmas Day was on a Saturday, you didn't get the Monday. Oh no, that was because it was part of the working day in them days.
No.
And New Year's Day, whatever it was you went and got whatever you got done.
Well, my father on the farm, so he had to milk the cows, so he saw my father at breakfast time at Christmas Day, and he'd gone again to milking the cows, and the cows hadn't stopped milking, did they? When
7:30 in the morning, when New Year's Day, the day after you were there, and New Year's Day you didn't get off, and you were there. But every time you crept in the house, you got back in, you were there, and it was 7:30, not 25 to 8. It was 7:30 actually. Good. Well, you're late. It's only, so
the old clocking, clocking machines. You had to clock in.
At lunchtime, our lunch break was 12:30 to 1 o'clock, and it was 1 o'clock, not 10 past. It was 1 o'clock. And I think when we got home, my dad was there then some of the time. The lunch was on the table.
Yeah.
We rode on my bike from Weewards to Welfare Road. Lunch was on the table.
Well, the housewife was a housewife then, wasn't
and
she? She looked after
12 to 1, I left the house. My dad was privileged, he did leave a bit later, not many minutes. And he went back, and it was 5:30 at night. And it was 5:30. It wasn't 20 past. It was 5:30. And I remember the days. But I was, in fairness to Mr. W.E., a grandman, a very forward-thinking man. When you think what he built in this village, and he's forward-thinking, unfortunately he died. Well, it's 72, he wasn't very old. And he sent me to Tech. And I went to Burton Tech, 8 o'clock, bus on a Monday. I got a day off, day release. And I caught the 10 o'clock bus out to Burton at night, a whole day that night. I looked, I got an auntie, I had my tea out, and I had to be worked up by 7 next morning. And 3 nights a week I come in, it'd be 5:30, but 6 o'clock I got, that's the bus, to go for 3 nights a week, and I had to come back on the 10 o'clock bus, because I wasn't old enough to drive anyway. My dad wasn't old enough in the car anyway, but
that's incredible.
But in fairness, that's what set me up to where I am in life today.
That's what
Through
life
that.
was then years
Yeah.
ago, you know.
And
You
I went
worked
to
dusk till
Tech.
dawn.
Even when I was in the Air Force, because, you know, I was only educated at Oral School. I left on a Friday, started work on the Monday, and that was it.
That's how you can tell what we're
But
like
at
now.
Tech, I met some grand lads that we'd been to Burton Tech College, technical school, and I saw construction which they didn't see. And so we did a bit of swapping. I do your drawing, you do my maths, and that's how we did. And I think the teachers knew, but you'd helped each other along. You helped each other in them days.
So did you, when you went to school here, what age did you leave the village school?
I
at?
left at 15.
15.
And you didn't go on to a high school?
No,
No.
unless you're bright enough to pass 11 plus.
Unless you wanted to go.
Unless you pass 11 plus, and I wasn't bright enough, so, you know, I couldn't live with that. And when you think, some went to grammar school, I remember one of the very friends was a bus driver.
Yeah,
So they didn't, you know.
So there must have, were there a lot of children at school? If it went from like the,
Well, from 5, you went at 5.
yeah, and then left at 15 in
Yeah,
the village
yeah,
school?
that was it,
The big
yeah.
school at the end is in the top class, there'd be about 40.
Yes, Stubby's
Yeah,
class.
in
Yeah,
Stubby's class.
Yeah,
Mr. Tubbs took the top class,
Stubby's.
but 40 of you. And you were in them rows. Oh, yes.
Yeah, he moved along age group.
Yeah, his age and that. Every summer you went up one, didn't you?
Yeah.
You didn't, whether you'd done well in your exams or... You didn't even get a school report, I don't think, in them days.
No, we never had any reports.
No. I think if the parents asked one, they could ask the teacher something if they saw him in the village. But, you know, the school was there.
So was there ever any thought of university in those days?
Yeah, well, not to me.
Well,
I can't remember anybody, I don't think.
Well, my parents couldn't afford to send me anywhere, so
And it-
you know what I
and
mean,
went-
that was life.
I don't think when people went to, you know... I
If
can't
you got
remember.
money, I suppose you
They
could
went to, there was Tech
private
High.
schools, couldn't you?
There was you could go to Burton Tech and to carry on schooling again to take your A levels, or no, it'd be the what's names then, it wasn't before the A levels. You could go there. One or two did, but they were not our era perhaps. It was just after that, after the war. I mean, when I went to the Tech at Burton, they got one new building. We was in the old prefabs for part of it, for woodwork, and they had machine shop and other bricklayers would all go. And a lot of us at night school, we went to the local schools in Burton. There was Technical High, which was at Branson's now, a nursing home. Another one where off Uxbridge Street, you went there, you got off, you walked there, and you'd never catch the night because you couldn't run quick enough to catch the bus. And that's why if it was raining in Burton, there was no bus stops. The bus stops were no bloody shelter.
No shelters.
And that's and I used to meet blokes from Barton, get off at Barton turns on the buses, and a lad from Eddingale, Mickey was on the engineering, on the motor mechanic side. He was on the bus, he went to Tech, and you could see going into Burton, and you know, then the Burton lads was at Ralston, and I just, you know, I think they're all dead now, but one or two became reps for Midland Joinery and Sharps, and I used to call and see them, and you meet them from time to time in town, you know, and have a chat. And then I went back to Tech and I met some more when I came out of the forces, take some more exams. And I met one or two then who'd gone on to be site foreman and whatever, but they just seemed to settle into one. One packed up, he went on insurance, and some went to work in the brewery, which was a doddle job, you know. But they were good lads, and we had some good fun, and they were mates, they'd look at, you know, and help you, and there's no like coming after Tech and going, let's go to the pub and start fighting. There was none of that. And the old days, you can remember, Colin, at lunchtime at the Tech, there used to be down New Street, there was Harlow's, the mine merchant, there was a cafe, there was the pub, not the Leopard, there was a big pub, wasn't there, down there, fish and chip shop. Well, the Mullies, we used to get a break, we always went to Mullies for a sandwich, or we went to that cafe. You had an hour and you were back, because if you weren't back, they might you go. And I came back 5 minutes late because we've been messing about somewhere. And my dad knew next morning that I was 5 minutes late. I was right here again, often, because I was 5 minutes late going back in after a break. Yeah, you had a card you took with you to take, and it was signed by each whoever took. You got so many hours on practical, so many hours on theory and whatever science, and it was all signed. That to be signed by them, and he used to put L5. I know I got caught once for that. But, you know, that's what things you did, all right. You've got a rollicking, but, you know. I always said, when I went in the forces, when the man shout, they said, oh, they shout at you. I said, you ain't been in the building trade, mate. You've had your backside kicked, you ain't done it right.
Oh, 2 thrashes.
Yeah.
Was it run out?
No. I just went, I think we may have enough there. What do you reckon?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think anything. Unfortunately, the village, perhaps we've got older, hasn't changed. There's no old man, there's no working men's club. There's the cricket go, but I'll go to the cricket now, I don't know anybody. I perhaps know Tim Aston, well, fair enough. And I talked to Tim and I'll give a donation.
All the villages and all the gone, they're all the old villages.
Like
and
the
they're
show,
gone,
the days
you
of
know.
the Bill Johnsons, Jim Williams, the old Jim Williams, the farmers from all round are on the committee. Mr Shaw, Mr Shaw, Doug Shaw, Joe Shaw.
Yeah, all the farmers are gone,
All the
so
farmers are gone. So,
you know.
So there were lots and lots, and then, I mean, the show meetings were in the pub. As you met in the Dragon when you first started, they used to shut the big room and you could hear the committee room. And David Johnson could tell you more about. I mean, I got involved with the show after I started as a clerk of works, and I was the gate, looked after gatemen. We had to get these gatemen and I asked them, and I'd collect the money and say they were all right, and collect the money and take it to the treasury. Who in them days, the secretary, the treasurer, had a tent on site, part of the tent, and you went in to get your horse jumping, you went in there, any queries, secretaries there, you went into the secretary's tent. Cess Hall was for years as secretary, and before him was Mr Taverner from Byford Brook Garage.
Taverner,
Taverner, wasn't it? Taverner.
And
that's when we used to have taxis in the village, Rolls Royce taxis. Charlie Wood,
Charlie, yeah.
Les Edwards,
Yeah.
used to drive these Rolls Royces.
Les had
Old ones.
That's from Leeds, wasn't he?
Yeah, and then he went to Leeds as a manager.
Yeah,
and then he went
I had
to
my van
Leeds.
from there, me A35 van from there.
I got mine off Mr Jim down here. I
Les-
think
Les
Underwood
got
was the
mine.
manager then.
£500 it cost me.
Yeah. Mine was minivan was £395 on the road, brand new.
Mine was brand new, my van, A35
I
van.
did 200 odd thousand in it when I went down HPC because I got a car. I sold it for 200 quid. With how many hundred on the clock?
A lot of miles.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
miles.
Long time
But-
ago.
Then again, we used to go to Taverner for 3 gallon of petrol, and Bailey's costed £1. 3 and 4 a gallon.
Yeah. You fill up under the.
But then you weren't getting the wages.
Yeah.
No, that's right.
That's
yeah.
right. Yeah, I think.
You're getting £4 or £5 a week, and you know.
My first wage I had this house was £14 a week. And Tony Winton told me, that's why Tony has been worked with Tony on the show committee and and I haven't seen him for a few years now, and we always have a chat, and I was 40 quid short, and she said, good night, daddy, if you'll lend it, yeah.
Yeah.
You'd like to pay him back.
The bloke I was at Dunlop's at the time and bought that, and they fiddled my get my mortgage.
I mean, they did, again, they helped.
Not fiddle a little bit like, you know.
Yeah, they helped you.
You paid what you.
They didn't want your wife sorry.
No.
Which
No,
was
they
a
weren't
good
allowed
thing.
that. They weren't allowed, was he?
No, them days, no.
Weren't allowed.
So how much did you pay for this?
£3,400.
How much?
3,400.
Yeah, 3
And,
one we paid
and
for
Tony
that.
Winton got me 200 quid knocked off. He's done that.
301.
And the bloke name, he moved to the 838 in the first house of Leasley's. But by the Ponyfield entrance,
Yeah.
the bloke moved out of Tom Green's house, was it does. Moved there now and they're rode down.
So did you move in this from new?
I moved it, no, it was 3 years old. They built in 63, and I moved in 66.
67 we moved.
And that's right, just about 12 months after us. And they bought in
I
July.
bought in March.
We
Bought in March, we got
July.
married in June.
Yeah,
We
we
got-
bought
we
ours
got
in
there.
July, got married in September. And, well, I put extensions on all to do, as you can see.
Well, it was a house, weren't it? Nothing else.
In them days, they didn't call them, I mean, I decided it to Bailey Construction, we're not calling them show houses, they're homes. And that stuck with a good many companies. And now you see Harrington and Heinz, I said, well, we call them show homes. It's a home now, not a house was a house. And if you heard, I mean,
House
our
and a home.
next door neighbours were in then. Taylors were in when
Yeah.
we moved in.
Well,
And Mary
Sherman's-
Sherman was.
Yeah, Mary Sherman's.
They
bought it.
they didn't move in from new, but it was only after 12 months. They seemed to swap one or two did along here. And then, Derek Bearsmore, he didn't move. He moved just before you, didn't he? Just
Yeah, he was there when we come.
Yeah,
So
but only
the kids
about 12
pulled me
months.
flowers up.
About the same time as us they moved in.